Our neighbor's looking at us like we're crazy.
It's okay.
Hi guys, welcome back to our channel. I'm Lynn.
And I'm Jonathan.
And we are Creating Capture Life.
Tired. It's been a long week, by the way. We'll take the next like 10 seconds, and you guys can do it. We won't, because neither one of us can sing. But it was Lynn's birthday this week, so you guys should all sing her happy birthday. We'll wait.
It's fine. Best part about my birthday
They're singing.
is I get an entire extra year of life, because I've been telling people for the last year that I was the age I just turned this week. So technically I gained a whole other year, so that's cool. So this week we're going to talk about how we came to the decision and all the different RVs and the way that we came to the decision to decide on our dream RV that we lost out on temporarily. So that's what we're going to talk about this week, is all the different kinds of RVs, and then ones that we've tried and what we thought of them, and then ultimately what we decided on was our dream RV. That if you watched we lost $135,000 in our dream RV, that's the RV we're talking about.
Yeah.
So sorry, my hair is wet because we were doing a project all day and I just took a shower, so no makeup and wet hair. Sorry about that.
Oh, well.
If you guys have watched our channel for a while, then you know why we decided to RV full-time, and I will link that video down below in case you're a new subscriber and you haven't seen all of our reasons why and the RVs we were originally looking at. I will link that down below so you can watch that. But for everyone else that hasn't been on the journey or is looking at RVs and isn't quite sure, we thought this could be helpful. And plus you guys have all asked us what our dream RV was, so this is gonna kill two birds with one stone. We figure we will describe to all of you guys that are wondering what different RVs there are, what we've looked at, what we thought of them, and then what we ultimately decided on.
Yeah, and depending on when you asked us, several of you have heard different answers into what our dream RV was, because it kept changing as we looked at new stuff.
Which is good,
Yeah.
right? Because we looked at RVs for about a year and a half, test drove a bunch of different ones, walked through hundreds of them, and every time we thought we had decided on something else changed our mind.
Yeah.
So first of all, for those of you, an RV recreational vehicle is anything that you can vacation or live in. It could be a towable, it could be drivable, whatever, that's an RV. A motorhome obviously is
a house with a motor.
Yeah, a home with a motor. So, but they are technically the same thing. And if you hear, we are out here at our apartments, and so if you hear a bunch of people talking, sorry, it's just the way it is around here sometimes. There are a lot of people right now who part-time and full-time on the road. There are people who full-time and then are going part-time, or part-time and going full-time. Our goal was to live full-time on the road. So currently people live, one, in cars.
Which is weird. I think that's kind of small.
Yeah.
It's really
But there are people who, not homeless people, we're not talking about homeless people, right? Who live in cars. We're talking about people who intentionally live in a car.
Live in a car. There's a gal out there that lives in her Bronco, I think it is. She has an older Bronco and she lives in it.
And there's another girl that I follow, and I can't think of, if I can think of her channel, I'll link it down below, but she was living in her Prius for 2 years, traveling around the United States just like you do in anything else, but she was living in a Prius and she loved it.
And we thought going from 1,600 square feet down to 700 square feet was hard.
She had this whole, she has this whole setup where once she wants to sleep, she pins up towels around all the windows, and so no one can see in when she's sleeping. It's really interesting, and she's happy living in a Prius.
Yeah.
So there's those people. There's people who live in SUVs, so they're a little bit bigger, and they can sleep in the back, or sometimes they take all the seats out and build out like little cabinets and even little kitchens and like whatever in them. Those are kind of interesting. And then vans. Everybody knows about van life. In fact, don't you know somebody who's building a van right now?
Yeah. One of my friends, Taylor, is building her van. If you guys want to have information on what she's doing a Ram ProMaster, I think it is, build out. We'll link her Instagram down below, and you guys can go check her out.
But yeah, van life is huge.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of people, and van life is usually a single person or a couple, usually with a dog or a cat. And they build out the van custom most of the time. About 90% of the time, they build out the van custom to the way they want it, and they live in their van and travel around, and they like that because they can stealth park anywhere, which you can't really do in an RV.
No.
Trailers.
Yep.
So you can have a trailer.
Yeah, and everything from a converted like cargo trailer, which actually another one of my coworkers is doing. He's doing a converted cargo trailer, and he's actually doing a pretty substantial build out too. But he's going to be able to take that thing anywhere because he wants to tow it out to the desert with his Jeep. But it is literally a like Wells Cargo style trailer, and he's decking it all out though. I'm actually pretty excited to see it.
I know, it's fun to see what people do because everyone has their own vision, and it's cool to see kind of like home decor, how people build out their own things. Fifth wheels. So a fifth wheel is just a really big trailer, I guess. It's hard to, it's more home-like. Usually and they have slide outs, and they're usually really big, and you can, you have to have a really big truck, and. That's a fifth wheel. Toy hauler is basically the same.
It could be a fifth wheel.
Yeah, a fifth wheel with a garage.
Yeah, and then you can also get a bumper pull, travel trailer, toy hauler, all that stuff. It's all the same. It's just, depending on how you tow it, it's either a bumper pull or a fifth wheel. So or gooseneck. Same thing. It's a fifth wheel.
We decided not against a fifth wheel. I actually really like fifth wheels. The insides of fifth wheels to me, feel most like a house because you can get a separate living area, a separate living room. You can get 2 bathrooms, all those kind of things. But
I didn't want to tow it.
It is kind of scary to think of towing. And we watch a lot of channels where people are towing fifth wheels, and even ones that have done it for a long time have smashed their trucks and had different problems.
Yeah, towing with me didn't really bother me, but right now I drive a Toyota Tacoma. That's not going to tow a fifth wheel. We'd have to get a bigger truck.
We would have had to buy a fifth wheel and a brand new truck.
Yeah, so we're talking
and it would be a diesel
price.
And it would be a diesel truck to pull, probably, right?
Yeah. So it would have ended up as the same price as getting a motorhome.
Yeah. So those were not considerations. None of those were considerations for us. Sorry, our DoorDash is coming. It's DoorDash.
Okay.
Our DoorDash is coming. We're waiting for dinner. We didn't consider any of those.
No.
I mean, fifth wheels we did for about 5 minutes.
We looked at them.
And we really liked the interior, but like Jonathan said, we didn't want to buy a truck, and then we didn't want to tow it and go through all that.
Yeah.
The nice thing about that would be, though, is that once you park your trailer somewhere, like an RV park or whatever, then you have your truck to go do whatever you want.
But we went the other way. We wanted to get the motorhome and then just tow a Jeep.
Right. So then there's motorhomes. There's Class A, Class B, Class C, and Super C.
And Super B.
And I guess a Super B.
Yeah.
So Class A's are the most typical ones that people consider when they think about a motorhome. They look like buses. They can be up to 45 feet. They can be gas or diesel. They look inside more like a house. They usually have at least 2 slides. I made some notes because I'm not good at remembering all these things. They're usually built on a commercial bus chassis or commercial truck chassis, so they're pretty heavy duty. If it's a diesel, the engine's in the back, so it's a pusher. If it's a gas, the engine's in the front, so you're pulling the weight rather than pushing the weight.
And no, I know, someone's going to mention, well, what about the Newmar diesel puller? Yeah, okay, there's that one.
Class A's usually have a lot of storage, which is good, especially if you're going to have full-time. A lot of storage is good.
Yeah, especially the diesel pushers, because with the engine being in the back, all of the drivetrain, everything, all that stuff is in the back, so all of your bays up front are usually wide open, so there's nothing. But
there's a lot of storage.
With your gas engines, that drive shaft has to go through the middle of the coach, down usually into the bottom, all the way to the back to the wheels. So you kind of lose a little bit of space, but still a lot more space than most.
And then the Class A's get the worst gas mileage, according to statistics.
According to statistics, but it depends on what you get.
You may require a special license depending on the Class A you choose
and depending
the
on
state
what state you live in or you register it in.
Oh yeah. And they can usually tow a vehicle but depending on your Class A, the vehicle you can tow, the weight ratio is going to be different depending on if you have a 45-foot diesel pusher versus a 30-foot gasser. The towing is going to be, capacity is going to be different.
Yeah, usually you get a lot more towing capacity with the diesel pushers than you do with the gas engines, but that's not always the case. Sometimes, you know, depending on what you're trying to tow.
So we did look at Class A's.
We looked at a lot of Class A's.
And we really liked the Class A's.
All right, so Class B's are usually built on like van chassis and stuff like that. Now, the difference between a standard B and a super B is the standard B's are literally a van conversion, you know, that's got some space in it and stuff like that. Super B's now is this new category that's actually kind of cool. It's smaller than a Class C, but it's definitely a little bit bigger than a Class B. So it's like a Class B with a couple slide outs. So it's still a van chassis, but it's a little bit more. So those are kind of cool. We didn't really look at those because those are, honestly for us, they're a little bit too small.
With 3 people and 7 animals.
Yeah, it's a little small for us. But
and a Class B also has standing room, whereas a van, even though it's built on a van chassis, the difference, and it looks like a van. So Class Bs look like vans, but they're taller, so you can actually stand up in the van.
Yeah.
Or in the Class B, they'll like walk through it.
Yeah.
Whereas a van conversion, usually you can't walk through it unless you get the extended height van.
The super tall.
Yeah. And they usually have, the other thing that classifies a Class B is that they usually have a wet bath. They don't usually have a separate toilet and shower. It's usually a wet bath, which means the toilet is in the shower. Or some people put in composting toilets.
Because of space. Yeah, there's not a lot of space in
So you're
these
compacting everything in your house into like a real small space.
Yeah. And then, so your Class C's are built on what they consider a cabin chassis. So that is like larger vans, like your E350s, E450 vans. Those are your, like, you know what they built, U-Haul trucks and stuff like that. Or larger front ends for trucks, like like F450s, F550s, stuff like that. Bigger, larger vehicles with larger engines.
Always recognizable because they have an over-the-cab bunk or an over-the-cab area that sticks over the cab. So you always can tell that's a Class C because there's something hanging over where you're driving. I guess that's the best way to put it. It's kind of, in a Class C, is kind of a compromise between an A and a B. It's smaller than an A, but bigger than a B. I guess is the best way to say it. They can only be usually up to 30 feet in a Class C because you're pulling it, you know, with usually a V10. So it's usually not more than 30 feet.
They're not going to be too big. But with the engine being in the front, usually Class C's will give you a little bit better towing capacity. So if you take the same Class A chassis that has the same engine from the like the Ford Triton V10 engine, but you put it in a super or in a Class C, sometimes you'll get a little bit better towing capacity. I don't know if that's always true or not, but that is one of the things that some of the research that I've done has showed. But I don't know if that's always true, but because you get a little bit more airflow in the engine and stuff like that. I'm not sure exactly why, but that's one of the cool things about C class.
And then sometimes a Class C can have slides, but not all the time.
No.
The newer Class C's seem to have more, like up to 2 slides, but the older Class C's never had slides.
Yeah.
So the next one is a Super C. And a year and a half ago, that was what we were going to order.
Yep, we were all set, ready to order that thing.
Like, we were ready to put the money down and order us a Super C. We knew which one we wanted.
Yep.
We knew the colors. We knew the interior, everything.
Yep.
Fireplace, residential fridge, slide outs, multiple bathrooms, like all the storage space you could possibly imagine.
Yeah.
That was what we wanted.
For those of you guys that want to look up what we were going to get, there was only a little bit of a difference between these two, so we weren't sure. It was just basically the size of the engine, but we were looking at the Forest River Dynamax DX3 or Dynamax DX3 38TS or the DynaQuest 3801. which is basically the difference between the Dynamax and the DynaQuest. You get a little bit more engine with the DynaQuest.
And price.
And a little bit more amenities with the DynaQuest. So, but the difference between the regular Cs and the Super Cs is the engine. The Super Cs are now built on basically a semi-truck diesel front end. So now they're no longer built on like a Ford or a GMC chassis. Now they're built on like a Freightliner or a Volvo, or like basically anything you see over the road trucks, you know, tractor trailers towing down the road, that is now what you get as the front end of your Super C. So you're now getting that diesel, you're getting that bigger engine, you're getting that, the air brakes, you're getting the, you know, Allison 6-speed transmission or 12-speed transmission, depending on which unit you get. You're getting all of the bigger power of a large semi-truck. Now you're talking also, like the one that we were looking at, the 38, that is 38 feet in length. You can go up to 40 feet in length, is ones that we saw. Renegade makes some great ones, but we really liked the Forest River, the Dynamax one. It had 3 slides. It had a ton of storage down below. And
washer, dryer,
fireplace, yeah.
Televator.
Everything.
50-inch TV on a televator.
Yeah. So.
And then with a Super C, almost always, depending on where you live, you will require a special license to drive Super C because it's it's basically a big rig truck.
Yeah.
So why didn't we get a Super C? That was like, we had our heart set on the Super. We went and looked at it like 3 times.
Yep.
We looked at all the options. I mean, that's what we wanted.
Ultimately, she got sick.
We test drove it, and within 5 minutes of sitting in the back, I felt like I was going to throw up.
Yeah.
I moved to the front seat. It wasn't any better. To me, it felt really claustrophobic because it is a semi front end. It felt really claustrophobic. Even with the seat, you can adjust the seat so it's like a bounce ride or whatever that's called.
Air ride seat.
So the guy did that for me. That didn't help. It just made me, I don't know what it was about that, the Super C, but I was so motion sick. It was horrible.
And that was super painful because I really liked the Super C.
And I liked it too. I love the interior.
But
the colors and...
We couldn't do it. The second she got in it, she got sick. It was like, all right, well, game over.
Yeah, that sucked. And we're losing light, so we're going to hurry up the ending of this. So we went to, after deciding that Super C wasn't going to work for us, not to mention the fact that they're almost $300,000. We went to the RV show in 2019 before COVID. We went to the RV show here in California and we walked through everything: Airstreams, fifth wheels, vans.
I mean, we saw
all the different Class A's. Like, we walked through everything.
We walked through more than 100 units.
Yeah, and we liked the Class A's.
Yep.
We were like, okay, well, Class A. Well, Jonathan really wanted a diesel, but diesel's kind of out of the price range of what we wanted to spend.
Yep.
So we were thinking, okay, what are the options? Well, friends of ours have a Class A that's a gasser, and they really like it. So we were like, well, we could just get a gasser. It'll be less expensive.
Yep.
So then we fell in love with the Tiffin.
Yeah, Tiffin Open Road.
Yeah, I don't remember which one. Do you remember what it was?
I don't remember what it was. It was the Tiffin Open Road, but we were looking at the bunkhouse.
Originally,
Since we didn't have that overhead space in the, like we did in the Super C for Ryan, now we were thinking, okay, well, for him to have his own space, we were thinking bunkhouse. We really had our heart set on that Tiffin. Prior to that open road, we had also been looking at some of the Reds, the rear engine diesels, and we really liked those. But we had our heart set. We were going to do a custom order on that Allegro open road. And then we started seeing some people, and we knew some people that started having problems.
And we were going to special order ours.
Yeah, we were going to do a custom order
because we couldn't find one that had everything we wanted. So we were going to special order it, and we had known a lot of people who did that. Right? Why not get everything you want?
Yeah. So we decided, all right, let's go take a look at it. Let's just do a quick test on it, because maybe all of these things that we heard, maybe it's just isolated incidents. So we went and we looked, and we already had a little bit of a bad taste because of all the problems we had heard. So we took Ryan, and he got into the bunk portion, And he said, nope, absolutely not. It feels like I'm in a coffin.
Yep.
Those bunks are actually really, really small.
They're great for kids, I guess.
Yeah.
But for him, he was like, no, I feel like I would feel like I was sleeping in a coffin.
Yeah.
But also, we know people who special ordered Tiffins or bought a Tiffin, and they've had the thing's been in the shop like over, and in the first year they've had it, the thing's been in the shop a million times, or they couldn't get the parts that they needed, so then they ended up, one of them waited like 4 months, and maybe because of COVID, I'm not sure, but they waited like 4 months for a part and they couldn't get it, and so finally they ended up having to drive to Alabama with their Tiffin to go get the part done in Alabama, where they're like
where the factory is.
Yeah, the factory is.
We had to move over a little bit, but
we had to get back into some light. It was getting really dark. So on the Tiffins.
Yeah, so we just decided, we weren't really sure, and we started looking at other coaches, and that's when we went over to one of our local dealerships and took a look at a Forest River Berkshire.
Once we knew we didn't want a bunkhouse.
Yeah.
That was the big thing. Once Ryan said a bunkhouse wasn't going to work for him and that he was totally willing to sleep on a pull-out couch, that changed everything.
Once Ryan said he wouldn't sleep in the bunk, we knew that we pretty much had everything kind of thrown out the window, and we could start over again.
But at the same time, we didn't have to lock ourselves into a bunkhouse.
Yeah, so that was good.
Which opened up the field a lot more.
Yeah. So we went down to our local RV dealership, and we started looking at stuff, and we kind of gave him an idea of what our price range was and what we were looking at, and he said, the Tiffins are kind of expensive just for the sake of being expensive. He says, I might be able to show you something different. So he showed us.
And we had Ryan with us.
Yeah, and Ryan was with us. So we took a look at the Berkshire, Forest River Berkshire, and the model that we actually looked at the dealership was a 39A. And I personally, I fell in love with it.
Yeah, same.
It had everything we had been looking at.
It had the fireplace, washer and dryer, 2 bathrooms. It had opposing couches, or like 1 couch and then 2 theater seats and a televator.
Yeah.
So if you have people there, you could sit opposite them and have a conversation, which was a big deal.
So when we fell in love with the Berkshire, I noticed that it was a Forest River product, and what it really resembled to us was it was the Class A version of that Super C that we fell in love with way back in the beginning. And that is ultimately exactly what we liked about it. It was pretty much the same amount of space. It had the same amenities, so the fireplace,
the
televator, all of that cool stuff that we had been looking.
Theater seats.
All of those things that we wanted with the Super C. Now the lights turn on.
Now the lights turn on.
Now we found
this is why how we don't edit these things like crazy, because it is what it is.
Yeah. We all of the things that we wanted in that Super C, now we found in a Class A. I took it out for a test drive.
And we were all there. So Ryan was there. And we sat, I always sit in the back when we test drive anything. And we've test driven a lot of RVs, and I always sit in the back first to see if I'm going to get car sick. Nothing. No. Ryan and I were having a conversation sitting at the dinette. Then we moved to the couch because there's still, even when the slides are in, there's room to sit on the couch. We walked around a little bit. I did sit in the front, and it felt like you're in a movie theater because of the big windows. Ryan sat in the front. We all loved it, all 3 of us. We were all there, and we all felt, and by the way, there's our dinner. Our dinner just walked by. We all fell in love with that. Ryan loved it. Yeah. I loved it. No one got sick. That was what we were going to do.
It was very easy to drive. It was very comfortable. Steering felt good. Everything felt good. I'll be completely honest with you. The reason we didn't probably automatically just buy it from that dealership, and the reason that we ended up in Indiana, one of the reasons we ended up in Indiana, was my experience with the Forest River product has been okay, but I know they get a lot of really bad reviews. But I'll tell you, the reason that, or the thing that changed my mind was when I contacted Forest River, and I got a call within 24 hours from their service manager. I contacted the factory, and then their service manager, bless you.
Sorry, not COVID.
Their service manager, their local regional guy, called me right back, and we chatted on the phone. And the reason I called him was because the unit that we test drove had a lot of problems.
Well, and the other thing is, this is when we test drove it, the guy was all hot and heavy to sell it to us at first. He was telling us how they only usually have 600 units on the lot. They only had like 100 because because of COVID. There's this huge rush in people buying RVs. He really wanted to sell us this unit, this and this and that, until we started talking numbers. And then all of a sudden he wasn't as friendly.
Yeah.
And then we were starting to notice, like when he was test driving it, 2 of the bays opened up while he was test driving it.
Literally driving down the road and 2 of the under bays just swung open.
And the guy's like, oh yeah, they don't always close right.
Yeah, that's normal.
What?
So that's when I called the service manager.
And so we didn't want to go back to that dealership.
Yeah. So that's when I called the service manager and I was like, hey, so what's the deal? Is this normal? This, that, and the other. And he told us that dealership doesn't have a great reputation for doing a lot of PDIs before the customer's test drive and stuff like that. They do all the PDIs after. Those are pre-delivery inspections. For those of you that don't know, that is basically when they go through and they find all the issues.
Well, and plus the guy, once we left, usually when someone's trying to sell you something and when you leave, they'll call you the next day, they'll call you 2 days later, whatever. We never heard from this guy again. Never called us to follow up, never. So we were like, you know what, if that's like, we're not buying it from there, because if he can't even call us to try to sell it to us, if something goes wrong.
Our realtor, Frank, told me about his friend, Chad, and it turns out Chad and I have a lot in common. His wife and I probably worked together at some point at Disney. There was just a lot of reasons why, we've probably known each other. And I called him and I said, hey, look, here's the deal. This is what I'm looking for. And he worked up the sweetest deal for me. Mm-hmm. And we talked about it, and that is what we put a deposit on. That is what we were on our way.
We waited until our house was in escrow.
Yeah.
All the things you're supposed to do, waited till the title search finished, did all the right things, sent the deposit for the RV, and then I'll link the video down below if you haven't seen it, but pretty much I think all of you guys have.
Yeah. You know what happened after that.
Yep, we didn't get our dream RV. And so now what? Now we are living in our 700 square foot apartment, which it turns out we really like. This is the common area back here.
But we're
saving towards our dream.
Yeah, we haven't given up on the dream.
No,
that is
not at all.
That is not in our plan.
Nope. And we still talk to Chad.
Yeah.
Chad checks on us. Frank, our real estate agent, has checked on us to make sure we're okay.
We do want to get out on the road and start traveling.
Even if we start part-time and then segue to full-time.
Yeah.
That's fine with us.
Yeah, so we are looking at units, we are looking at rigs.
So we're still looking. For those of you who say don't give up on your dream, we haven't given up on our dream. We still look. We search the dealerships. We talk to Chad. We talk to other people. We're still looking. We're still planning on ultimately, living full-time in our RV.
Yeah.
It just remains to be seen if it'll be that RV or a different one that Chad finds us or someone else finds us. We haven't given up the dream. No. We're still looking. Yeah. We're still on it. But we just kind of wanted to let you know because a lot of you have asked.
Yeah.
We need to go eat our dinner. So, because you saw it go by a while ago. It's probably getting cold. So, plus this video is probably long.
Yeah.
We're going to wrap it up. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being on our journey. We really appreciate each and every one of you guys being here every week. For all of the new subscribers we have, welcome to our channel. It gets better.
It will get better.
And we do have some new projects coming up, so super excited about those. For our Disney friends that watched our video last week, we love you guys. Thanks for sharing that video, and thanks for watching. We're with you. And
I don't know. I guess that's
it. So we're going to go eat Cheesecake Factory. So we will see you next week. Stay safe. Stay healthy.
Wash your hands. Don't touch your face.
Talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.